When a worldwide pandemic shuttered my industry for 2 years, I decided to hit the road. The question for me was, how do I meaningfully engage with people and communities that I've come to love over 25 years of touring with Driftwood Theatre? So I turned the camera on them, let them tell their stories.
All my memories of my summers is wrapped up in Driftwood. We laugh a lot, we cry a lot. We all get together in this crazy amount of short time to tell the stories, these stories that are hundreds of years old, and it's the most intense ride.
In this last episode, join me for one last ride back to the beginning of Driftwood's story, and then forward along the road to ask, what comes next? This is the Motorcycle Monologues. Every production has its closing night, every ride has its final destination, every journey comes to an end. And I can't think of a better place to wrap up the Motorcycle Monologues than in the beautiful town of Port Perry and the Scugog Shores Historical Museum. But before we get there, we're gonna have some brunch at a wonderful French bistro in Whitby, who have been friends to Driftwood and my family for decades. Then we need to go and talk to somebody without whom Driftwood would not exist, and I probably wouldn't be riding. And after that, we're gonna take the last ride and end things with a sunset. Can't think of a better way to wrap this up. If you had to describe Nice Bistro to someone, how would you describe it?
A small family-run restaurant. We try to make food from, wholesome ingredients, and we try to make everybody feel comfortable. And we also like to promote a bit the French. Parents will bring children who are French immersion or are starting to learn. You just want to hear them if they actually can speak.
You've been in operation now for almost 30 years.
Yeah, we had a restaurant in Toronto from 89 to 91, basically. We were able to leave Toronto and then stay and establish ourselves more in Durham.
And so what's one thing that you really appreciate about working and living in Durham?
It's grown and it's still growing, but it still remains some type of a town or community.
This is truly a family business. This is not just you and Bernard anymore. You've roped in your children.
Our son, yeah.
Was there a tradition of cooking in your home?
In our house, are you kidding? Shoemakers wear the worst shoes. There's no food at home. Because Bernard was cooking all these years.
Yes.
That's how we survived, because poor Bernard, you keep saying he's never had a salary in 28 years.
Let's talk a bit about how the last year and a bit has been. Was the community good in supporting people?
Amazing. Somebody started a little Facebook page with Durham Eats. So they all would go there and ask her, where can I get this and who recommends what. Because we were small, we just did all the job. Philippe and cooking me and the dishes, picking up the phone, bringing up the food, and Bernard, well, we send him to the jungle. The day can be long sometimes, but because I don't mind or I'm used to it, laughing makes it much easier. It makes it more easy for me as well to do the work all day long. Il prépare le repas pour vous, les petites crêpes.
Oh, des crêpes?
Une crêpe avec des légumes et fromage de chèvre.
Ok, oui.
Sans champignons.
Merci beaucoup.
Sans champignons.
Merci beaucoup.
On appelle la crêpe snob. Voilà. C'est ce qu'on appelle.
Merci beaucoup. Oui,
I thought when I was first approached by Jeremy many, many summers ago, he asked me would I be interested in doing Shakespeare in the park, and my first feeling was, no one's gonna come see that. I don't know Shakespeare. I memorized all my lines and did enough of a good job that Jeremy hired me the following next 100 years. I tend to be a really introverted, shy dude, and Driftwood forces you to get together with people in a room and tell stories and support each other. And that has been so necessary in my development as a person. Everything I've attempted afterwards I've dug into that treasure trove of skills that I developed with Driftwood.
Here I am at my mom and dad's place, and it feels like this journey has just been all about sort of trying to get back here. You had a big role to play in getting my company started. Do you remember the day that I called you?
Yes, I do. And you said to me, Dad, I have an idea. I want to know what you think. You said, well, I'd like to do classical theater, but I want to do it in a way that people can understand it. And I want to do it in a way that people can afford to see it. So I would like to do it in community parks on a pay-what-you-can basis. Would you help? I'd forgotten that question, because here I am 27 years later.
I think what I said specifically was, I had this idea, I'm not gonna make any money this summer, is that okay? You and Mom have given up most of your summers for the last 25 years. You both became volunteers, you worked front of house for like a decade, you both became board members. That's like a second career. On top of being a parent and on top of having your own practice, which you still did at the time.
Actually, it was a lot of fun. Obviously, we got to see all the shows. After some of the shows, you'd bring some of the actors or all of them out to the stage and let people ask questions, and different questions that let me know that they got it, you know?
What do you think the value of Driftwood is now, sort of 27 years in?
Well, I think it's a form of entertainment, but it's an entirely different one, especially the way Driftwood does it. And Shakespeare, as we all know, was tough to read when you were in high school, tough to understand, but you make it meaningful.
I ride a motorcycle because of you, because I grew up riding on a motorcycle with you. But it didn't start there. Do you ride because of your experiences riding with Grandpa?
Yep. Actually, I was born in Halifax in early May, and that summer my dad took my mom and I in a sidecar up to Cape Breton Island, and we rode the Cabot Trail, which in those days was a dirt road. So I've been riding in and on motorcycles since I was a month or two old.
I managed to find...
Oh, did you find some?
I found some evidence.
Because I couldn't find any.
It's the look of fear there. Yeah, that's your dad.
That's my dad and my mom.
What do you think of it? Like, that's me.
I look at that and I'm thinking, what on earth was I thinking?
What was Mom's reaction when you first suggested that my brother Jason or I should get on the back of your bike?
Oh, I think she probably had a fit.
I very distinctly remember Mom saying, not while you live under my house. Thank you for introducing me to motorcycles, because it is something that I dearly love. And you've given me one of the great joys of Mad Up Life, which is an organization that has grown to mean a lot of things to me personally and I think to a lot of people. And that's you.
No, it's you. You started it. You're the guy that put it all together and keeps it going. I'm just a helper.
Fair enough. Okay, so I think that we need to go and have a little bike ride.
How are we going to do that?
I don't know, we'll figure it out. The famous motorcyclist and philosopher Robert Pirsig once wrote about how motorcycling connects us viscerally to the world around us, how it places us overwhelmingly in the scene. And that's the beauty of motorcycling. That's why I ride. It's also why I tell stories and why I've missed the theater so much. That connection. Just outside of beautiful Port Perry, at one of my favorite museums.
Thank you.
Scugog Shores, where Driftwood's been visiting for over 10 years.
So we are a heritage site that shows life through the 1800s up until the early 1900s. We have 11 buildings on site here. It ranges from a log cabin showing kind of early settler life to traditional Victorian home called Lee House. We have a blacksmith shop. We have our print shop here, which is one of my favorites. And then we have our Ojibwe Heritage Interpretive Lands, which was a partnership in the early 2000s we did with the Mississaugas. It kind of shows what the watershed with the area would have been like pre-colonization, pre-settlement. This area is great because it has so much space. We have 2 huge green spaces. We're a great spot for the community as a meeting place, which is really what museums are transitioning to right now, to kind of re-envision themselves and their purpose.
I'm not quite sure what I expected from this experience being back out on the road. Maybe I'm just getting old, but despite the exhilaration of exploring Ontario and reconnecting with some of my favorite people and places, it's only at the end of my journey that I realize what I've missed the most.
What I hope we have coming out of this year is a more compassionate view of each other and the world. We live in a country that has a full story, and it's time to recognize all of that because it's the wholeness of what Canada is.
Moving forward, I think what I hope is different is that we've taken this isolation as an option to do the opposite. We're going to reach out more in all businesses and communities, families and friends.
I hope that we take care of each other better. I hope that we will take care of people in our society that are the most vulnerable. I hope we've learned a lesson.
I value my friends in a way that I don't think I was as conscious of a year ago. I hope we all lose our cool a little bit more, you know, and just open up to one another.
It's not always community going to theater. There's possibility to take theater to community. You see the old, you see the young. There is memory. Imagine over 20 years old of memories.
People have really elected to come to these spaces. The audience wants so much to be there and have this experience. And I think for me, that really sort of set the tone of how I wanted all my experiences in theater to be. Working with Driftwood meant the world. It was the start of all the good things.
I miss being near the stage or just witnessing things happening on stage. I just miss it all. I really do.
Our revels now are ended. These are actors, as I foretold you, were all spirits and are melted into air, into thin air. And like the baseless fabric of this vision, the cloud-capped towers, the gorgeous palaces, the solemn temples, the great globe itself, yea, all which it inherit shall dissolve, and like this insubstantial pageant faded, leave not a rack behind. We are such stuff as dreams are made on, and our little life is rounded with a sleep.
Where are we going? Where are we going?
Every road that I travel somehow leads to your door. So you stand at the window and you wait, and you'll sail to me till it grows too dark to see. Then you'll lie